Hey there. Welcome to Midnight Sleep Crime. I'm here to help you relax tonight. I know many of you use this video to fall asleep. So, before you get cozy, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. I'd love to hear from you. Story 1. The temperature inside the Lockwood Police Department evidence vault never rose above 42 degrees. A sterile, humming chill clung to every metal shelf, every cardboard box labeled in black marker, every forgotten case report whose ink was beginning to fade. Most officers avoided the vault unless necessary. It felt claustrophobic, tomb-like, too cold even in midsummer. Detective Rowan Hale liked that about it. Cold made people honest. Cold didn't lie. Cold preserved what heat and time tried to erase. But even Rowan had never been prepared for what they would find today. He stood with his arms crossed as the temperature techs wheeled in the old freezer, one that hadn't been opened, tagged, or cataloged since 1998. It had been rediscovered 2 weeks ago during a major inventory overhaul required by the state auditor. The vault supervisor had originally filed it as miscellaneous appliance/abandoned. But a curious tech noticed a faded, nearly peeled-off evidence label stuck behind the compressor. When she pulled it free, everything changed. Case #98-417B, she had whispered. Cold homicide. Disposition, unresolved. Now Rowan watched her hovering nearby, her face pale. She didn't want to be here, but she couldn't make herself leave. Ready? Asked Sergeant Melanie Dyer, pulling on a thicker pair of gloves. Rowan nodded once. The freezer was waist-height, pale blue, scratched along the top as if something heavy had once slid across it. The lock was rusted, the hinges stiff. Dust coated the lower half in a gritty gray layer. As they cut the padlock, a faint chemical smell drifted out, a musty, freezer-burned scent mixed with metal and something else Rowan couldn't quite place. The lid stuck at first. Then, with a groan, it lifted. The tech gasped. Rowan didn't blink. Inside the chest freezer lay the body of a woman. Frozen solid. She was curled slightly, like someone had tried to tuck themselves tight before impact, before death. Her hair, white blonde, fanned out in stiff strands, frozen mid-motion as if a sudden gust of wind had been captured in ice. Her lips were parted. Her eyes, what remained of them, were clouded with frost. Time had not rotted her. Time had preserved her. A human snow globe. Rowan exhaled slowly. Jesus. Melanie held a hand to her mouth. How long do you think she's been in there? Since at least 98, Rowan murmured. Maybe earlier. On the inside wall of the freezer, barely visible beneath frost, someone had written something. Rowan leaned in, brushing away frozen crystals with the back of a gloved hand until the words emerged. Do not let her out. She is not what you think. Melanie read it twice. What the hell does that mean? Rowan didn't answer. Instead, he stared at the small tag still attached to the woman's left wrist. An evidence number, faded but legible. 417B04. Melanie pointed at the tag. Rowan, that's the same series as the Lock Street disappearances. He stiffened. Yeah, he said quietly. It is. The Lock Street disappearances had been his father's case. 5 missing women. No leads. No bodies. No suspects. Nothing but a pattern that haunted Rowan throughout his childhood. Late-night phone calls, empty dinners, his father mumbling names in his sleep. One of the missing women was his mother's best friend. Another had been his father's confidential informant. And one, though the department rarely talked about it, had been the mayor's daughter. All vanished in a single year. Rowan leaned closer, analyzing the still, frozen face. If this is one of them, then everything we thought about the case was wrong. Melanie looked at him. You think your father knew this freezer existed? Rowan hesitated. His father had been a decorated detective, praised for his instincts. But he'd also been the department's ghost, obsessed, paranoid, secretive. Everyone knew he was slipping near the end. Talking to invisible people, claiming he was being watched, building walls around the case instead of solving it. And then, just 6 months after retirement, he shot himself. Rowan forced the memories back. I don't know, he said. But I'm about to find out. The freezer and its occupant were relocated to the forensic bay. The coroner, Dr. Lynn Aurora, was a small woman with sharp eyes and too much caffeine in her bloodstream at all times. She circled the frozen body like a hawk inspecting prey. I'll need to defrost her slowly, she said. Too quickly and she'll crack. Literally. Any initial impressions? Rowan asked. Female. Mid to late 20s. Bruising seems pre-mortem, hard to tell until the thaw is done. Then, she paused. Rowan frowned. What? Dr. Aurora leaned closer to the woman's hands. Her fingers, she murmured. Look at the fingertips. Melanie stepped in. They're trimmed. No, Aurora said. Removed. Rowan's stomach hardened. Whoever had done this had taken her prints. Removed her identity. Melanie folded her arms. Kidnapping? Torture. Rowan shook his head. More like someone wanted her to remain unidentifiable. Forever. Aurora stood straighter. Except they didn't know about the one thing they can't erase. Melanie blinked. Which is? Aurora smiled faintly. Bone structure. Dental records. Old fractures. This woman had a life, and I'm going to find out whose. Rowan felt a spark of something rare, hope. For the first time in decades, the Lock Street case was breathing again. By noon, news of the discovery had leaked. Not officially, Rowan was careful. But small towns had a way of peeling open secrets like old paint. Rumors spread. Cold case families called the station. Reporters lurked outside. And Rowan received a message he never expected. A text from a number not saved in his contacts. We need to talk. It's about the freezer. He stared at it. No name. Just a single initial. Rowan typed back. Who's this? Within seconds, the reply arrived. Someone who knows why your father hit her. Meet me tonight. 11:30 p.m. The old water treatment plant. Come alone. Before Rowan could type another question, the number went offline. Melanie leaned over his desk. Everything okay? He locked the screen. Fine. She raised an eyebrow. You're a terrible liar. It's nothing. Just someone fishing. She smirked. Well, fish carefully. At 4:15 p.m., Dr. Aurora called Rowan back to the lab. She's thawing faster than expected, she said. Come see this. The woman's skin was softening, its color shifting from icy gray to a lifelike pale peach. More bruises became visible. A deep mark across her ribs. Pressure wounds along her sides. Ligature marks around her wrists. Someone had tied her down. But something else stood out, something Aurora hadn't noticed at first. A small tattoo on her hip. A symbol Rowan recognized instantly. A vertical line. 3 horizontal hash marks. The symbol used by the women at the Lockwood Outreach Shelter. The shelter where Rowan's mother had volunteered for years. Where many of the missing women had stayed before their disappearances. His breath caught. She knew my mother, he whispered. Aurora froze. Your mother? Rowan. Footsteps echoed from the hallway. Melanie burst through the doorway, holding a printed sheet in her hand. Rowan, we have an ID. Aurora and Rowan locked eyes. Who is she? Rowan asked. Melanie handed him the paper, her voice unusually soft. Her name was Eleanor Price, she said. Reported missing in September 1998. Rowan blinked. Eleanor Price? Melanie nodded. She was the last woman your father interviewed before the case was shut down. Rowan stood in silence. Then Melanie spoke again, voice trembling slightly. Rowan, she was also the woman seen arguing with your father on the night he claimed he found a lead. The same night he stopped going home. The same night he locked himself in his office until 5 a.m. Rowan didn't respond. He couldn't, because something inside him had shifted, slowly, painfully, like the cracking of ice under weight. His father hadn't been unraveling. He'd been hiding something, and it had been buried in a freezer for 26 years. That night, Rowan drove alone to the abandoned water treatment plant. The structure was massive and rusted, its concrete walls tagged with graffiti, its windows shattered. The wind howled through broken beams like distant screams. At exactly 11:30 p.m., a shadow appeared near the center of the old turbine room. A woman stepped into the moonlight. Black jacket. Hood up. Barely visible face. "Detective Hale," she said softly. "You came." Rowan kept his hand near his holster. "Start talking." The woman lowered her hood. Rowan froze. He knew that face. Everyone in Lockwood did. Marissa Vance. The mayor's daughter. Reported missing at age 19. Presumed dead. But she was alive. And looking straight at him. "You found Eleanor," she whispered. "That means he's awake now." Rowan's voice cracked. "Who's awake?" Marissa stepped closer, eyes full of dread. "The man who froze us." The wind howled. The building trembled. Rowan's heartbeat stopped. He repeated. Marissa nodded once. "I wasn't the only one who survived." She looked directly into his eyes. "And your father wasn't the hero you think he was." Marissa Vance stood like a ghost resurrected from newspaper archives, pale under the moonlight, older but unchanged in a way Rowan couldn't immediately explain. Her hair was shorter now, chopped unevenly. Her cheeks slightly hollow. But her eyes, those sharp, knowing eyes from her high school photos, were the same. Exactly the same. As if she had not aged the 26 years since she disappeared. Rowan struggled for breath. "You're alive." Marissa gave a thin, humorless smile. "Not exactly." The wind rattled the rusted pipes above them, echoing through the empty turbine room like distant footsteps. Rowan steadied himself. "Start from the beginning. How did you survive? Who took you? And what does Eleanor Price have to do with?" "Not here," she whispered sharply. "He has ears everywhere. Cameras, microphones, people. If we're not careful, he'll know I talked to you." Rowan narrowed his eyes. "Who?" Marissa stepped closer. "The man your father feared." Her words hit like a slap. "What?" "You think your father was paranoid," she said softly. "That he was losing his mind. But he wasn't. He was trying to stop something bigger than he knew how to fight." Rowan swallowed. "What did he try to stop?" he asked. "Someone who doesn't die," she whispered. "Someone who collects us. Someone who—" A distant clang echoed through the facility. Marissa froze. "That's him." Rowan reached for his gun. "Hold still." "No." Marissa grabbed his wrist. "Guns don't work on him. You can't kill him, you can only run." Footsteps, heavy, deliberate, rang out from the far end of the plant. Rowan pulled Marissa behind a concrete pillar, his breath slow, controlled. "Who is he?" he murmured. Marissa's voice trembled. "He calls himself the curator." Rowan raised an eyebrow. "The curator? Like collections," she whispered. "Bodies. Women. People he believes are preserved for a purpose. People like Eleanor. People like me." "And you escaped him?" Her voice cracked. "No. He let me go." The footsteps grew louder. Marissa grabbed Rowan's sleeve, panicked. "We have to leave. Now." But Rowan wasn't moving. "Marissa," he said slowly, "my father was the last person investigating your disappearance. Are you telling me he met this curator?" She shook her head violently. "No. I'm telling you he worked for him." For a second, Rowan heard nothing but blood rushing in his ears. "What?" Footsteps stopped. Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. Marissa grabbed Rowan and pulled him deeper into the shadows. "He's close," she whispered. "I can feel him." Rowan tightened his grip on his gun. "If your story is true, if my father helped him, then why are you even here? Why tell me now?" "Because," Marissa whispered, "you found Eleanor. And once she thaws, she'll wake." "Wake?" "Eleanor wasn't dead when he froze her." Rowan's heart dropped. "What are you talking about?" Dr. Aurora said. "No one dies in that freezer," Marissa said. "Not completely." Her eyes shined with terror. "It's not just a freezer, Rowan. It's a chamber. It changes you." He stared at her, stunned. "You're telling me Eleanor is alive?" "I'm telling you," Marissa said, "that once she wakes, people will die." A metal door slammed shut somewhere deep inside the facility. Marissa gasped. He's here. Rowan aimed his gun toward the noise, voice steady. Stay behind me. You don't understand, she hissed. He doesn't come to kill. He comes to collect. They slipped through the backside of the plant, weaving through collapsed staircases and broken pipes. Every sound echoed like a shout. Every shadow felt like a hand reaching toward them. When they finally reached an emergency exit, Rowan shoved it open and pulled Marissa into the night air. She bent over, shaking. You shouldn't have come. You shouldn't have answered my message. You messaged me, Rowan said. You wanted this. I wanted you safe, she said. But now it's too late. Rowan grabbed her shoulders. What does he want with Eleanor? Marissa flinched at the name. You think Eleanor was the first? She wasn't. She was the last one he froze, but she was the first one he ever woke. Rowan's eyes widened. She woke. Marissa nodded. In his basement. In front of all of us. All of who? The rest of the collection, Marissa said quietly. The other girls. The ones who didn't die. The ones he kept asleep until he found a purpose for us. Rowan felt the world tilt beneath him. How many? Marissa looked away, voice barely audible. 7. And they're all alive? No, she said softly. Not anymore. Eleanor, if she wasn't herself when she woke. She changed. She tore 2 of the others apart before he could freeze her again. Rowan's throat tightened. You expect me to believe Eleanor Price killed 2 women within minutes of waking from being frozen for decades? No, Marissa whispered. I expect you to believe what you saw written in the freezer. Rowan froze. Do not let her out. She is not what you think. He felt cold crawl up his spine. You're saying Eleanor is dangerous. I'm saying Eleanor is no longer human. The drive back to town was silent. Marissa sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, hood low, body still trembling. Rowan had so many questions he didn't know where to start. He finally asked the one that mattered most. Where is the curator now? Marissa closed her eyes. He's near. He's always near. He moves like a shadow through people's homes. He knows our voices. He knows our habits. He knows who we love. She turned her head toward him. He knows you, Rowan. Rowan clenched his jaw. He doesn't know me. He knew your father, she whispered. And he knows what your father did. Rowan's fingers tightened on the wheel. My father died before I could ask him anything. That's not true, Marissa murmured. He died because he asked too many questions. The car jerked as Rowan slammed on the brakes. What did you just say? Marissa held his stare. He didn't kill himself. That's what I'm telling you. He was silenced. The night swallowed Rowan's breath. My father didn't kill himself? No. Then who did? Marissa swallowed. The same man who froze me. The same man who froze Eleanor. The curator doesn't allow disobedience. Your father tried to fight him. He paid the price. Rowan sat frozen. His father's final weeks flashed through his mind. Paranoia, whispers, locking the basement door, pacing through the yard at night. He wasn't losing his mind. He was being hunted. Why come to me now? Rowan asked. Because, Marissa said, the curator isn't after you. Rowan frowned. Then who? Marissa's voice dropped to a whisper. He's after Dr. Aurora. Rowan blinked. Why her? Because she's thawing Eleanor, Marissa said. And Eleanor wakes hungry. Rowan didn't like the way she said hungry. What happens when she fully thaws? Marissa shook her head slowly. You won't be able to contain her. None of you will. Eleanor isn't a victim anymore. She's a weapon. Rowan started the engine again. Then we stop her. You can't stop her, Marissa whispered. You can only contain her. And you only have hours. When Rowan returned to the station, the night shift lobby lights flickered with a strange buzz. Something felt off, unnatural. The desk officer looked up. Detective Hale? You're needed in the forensic bay immediately. Rowan's stomach dropped. Why? The officer swallowed. Dr. Aurora needs you. Now. Rowan moved fast, through the hall, down the stairs, across the cold corridor toward the lab. He burst into the forensic bay. Dr. Aurora stood next to the metal table where the partially thawed body of Eleanor Price lay. Except the sheet covering her chest was torn. Her arm had moved. Ice melt pooled around the table legs. And Eleanor's eyes, once frozen and clouded, were now open. Wide open. Dr. Aurora looked petrified. "I didn't touch her," she whispered. "I swear, Rowan, I didn't touch her." Rowan stared at Eleanor's face. Her pupils were dilated. Her lips slightly parted. To move. Barely. But it moved. Marissa's voice echoed in his memory. "Eleanor isn't dead. She's waking." Rowan took a slow step back. Then Eleanor's fingers twitched. Just once. But enough to make Dr. Aurora scream. Rowan reached out instinctively. "Lynn, get behind me." Eleanor's head shifted ever so slightly toward the sound. Rowan froze. She inhaled. A long, rattled, ancient breath. Dr. Aurora stumbled backward, horrified. Rowan, she's alive, she's..." Eleanor's eyes snapped to Rowan. Her lips curled. A whisper scraped from her throat like a blade dragged across stone. "Help me." Rowan hesitated. Marissa had said Eleanor was dangerous, inhuman. But looking at her now, broken, thawing, desperate, she seemed like a victim. Until she spoke again. "He's coming." Her voice deepened unnaturally, vibrating through the room. "He wants..." Rowan felt the temperature drop around him. Dr. Aurora whispered, "What is happening?" Eleanor's lips peeled into a wide, unnatural grin. "You're here?" Lights flickered. The door clicked. Someone, or something, was on the other side. Eleanor lifted her head with impossible strength and screamed. "He's outside." The forensic bay door rattled on its hinges. Rowan's hand froze over the holster at his hip. Dr. Aurora backed against the far counter, eyes wide, shaking as she stared at the door like it might burst inward at any second. Eleanor Price, dead for 26 years, thawing on a metal table, lay perfectly still now. Her eyes, which only moments ago had snapped open with unnatural clarity, were fully closed again. The unnatural grin was gone. Her chest no longer moved. It was as if she'd never awakened. But Rowan had seen her breathe. He heard her speak. The door rattled again, this time louder, heavier. 3 slow, deliberate knocks followed. Rowan raised his voice, commanding and sharp. "Identify yourself." Silence. Dr. Aurora's breath hitched. No one should be down here except us." Another knock. Harder this time. Rowan motioned her behind the filing cabinet and drew his gun, leveling it at the door. "Stay down. Do not move." Dr. Aurora ducked low, trembling violently. Rowan took one careful step toward the metal door. "Who's there?" he demanded again. No response. Just breathing, so faint he wasn't sure he was hearing it correctly. A whisper of air, as though someone's mouth hovered just inches from the steel. Then came a soft voice. A woman's voice. "Rowan." Dr. Aurora whimpered. Rowan's heart plunged into ice. Impossible. The voice was unmistakable. It was Eleanor's. But Eleanor's body was behind him, on the table, still frozen from the waist down. He glanced back. She hadn't moved. Not even a millimeter. He turned toward the door again, pulse hammering. "If you're in trouble, step back." "I'm opening the door." Dr. Aurora hissed. "Rowan, are you insane?" "That could be." "I'm not opening it all the way," he whispered. He clicked the gun's safety off, unlocked the door with his free hand, and cracked it open an inch. The hallway beyond was empty. Silent. Not a single footprint. Not a shadow. But the air was wrong, cold in a way the building's ventilation system could never produce. He opened the door a few more inches, just enough to peer into the corridor. Nothing. Just humming fluorescent lights. He shut the door again, locking it tightly. But the moment the latch clicked, bang, something slammed the door from the outside with inhuman force. Dr. Aurora screamed. The entire metal frame shook. Rowan braced himself, but whatever was out there didn't strike again. Instead, a whisper slid under the door like smoke. "He watches." Rowan's skin crawled. Dr. Aurora whispered, "Is that her? Is that Eleanor?" Rowan shook his head. "No. Eleanor's not moving. That voice didn't come from a living throat." "What does that mean?" He didn't answer. Because he didn't know. 10 minutes later, backup arrived. For officers, 3 of whom looked half asleep and entirely unprepared for the terror that had unfolded, swept the basement hall with weapons drawn. They found nothing. No signs of forced entry. No footprints. No ventilation disturbance. No cameras malfunctioning. Nothing. The building was so quiet it felt unreal. Captain Mendoza arrived next, his broad frame filling the doorway. His expression was somewhere between furious and exhausted. "Detective Hale," he said, stepping inside, "you want to explain why you called an emergency lockdown?" Rowan motioned to the table. "Because she woke up." Captain Mendoza stared at Eleanor's body, unimpressed. "She looks dead to me." Dr. Aurora spoke in a whisper. "Sir, no, she wasn't." Rowan added, "She spoke. She moved. She warned us." "Warned you about what?" Rowan hesitated. Saying the words out loud felt insane. "He's coming." "Who is he?" Rowan took a slow breath. "The curator." Mendoza rolled his eyes. "You're basing this on what? Some dead girl whispering to you?" "Hale, autopsy bodies twitch. They release air. They make sounds. It's normal." "That wasn't normal." "Hale." "She knew my name," he snapped. "Do dead bodies know people's names?" Mendoza glared at him. "You're rattled. Get some sleep. Dr. Aurora, freeze the body again until we can get a full team down here." Dr. Aurora shook her head violently. "No. We can't refreeze her. Her tissue integrity is unstable. Another cycle could destroy half her organs." Mendoza shrugged. "Let it destroy them. She's not going anywhere." Rowan stepped toward him. "She moved. Bodies convulse. She spoke. Air escaping the lungs. She warned us. Coincidence?" Rowan clenched his jaw. "Sir, there was someone outside that door." "We saw no one." "Because he's fast. And he's not normal." Mendoza's expression hardened. "Hale, if you keep pushing folklore over facts, I'm pulling you off this case." Rowan stared at him, incredulous. "Folklore? Captain, your officers heard the knocks." Mendoza didn't blink. "No, they didn't." Rowan stiffened. "What?" The captain's voice lowered. "What they heard was a ventilation malfunction. That's what they'll write. That's what will go in the report." Mendoza took a step closer, lowering his voice. "And that is what you will say too if you want to stay on this case." For the first time, something flickered in Mendoza's eyes. Fear. He wasn't disbelieving Rowan. He was terrified Rowan was right. After everyone cleared out, Rowan escorted Dr. Aurora upstairs. She refused to stay alone in the building, so he walked her to her car outside the precinct. The night air was cold, sharper than before. The street lamps flickered against the fog rolling in from the harbor. She stopped at her car door. "Rowan, do you believe this curator is real?" Rowan looked at her honestly. "I believe something is." "Eleanor? Is she alive?" "No," Rowan said. Then, after a pause, "Not in the way we understand." Dr. Aurora shivered. "I'm going home," she whispered. I need to process this." "I'll follow you." "You don't have to." Rowan shook his head. "Tonight I do." She gave a small, grateful nod and got in her car. Rowan returned to his vehicle, but stopped halfway. Someone was sitting in the back seat. He saw the silhouette through the fogged rear window. A small frame. A woman. Rowan drew his gun silently and approached the passenger side, keeping the weapon trained at the window. "Whoever you are," he said quietly, "I'm giving you one chance to step out with your hands visible." The figure didn't move. Rowan opened the back door swiftly, gun raised. And froze. The back seat was empty. Ice pooled in his lungs. He shut the door and looked around, scanning the parking lot. Nothing. Just empty cars and fog. He took a steadying breath. "You're tired," he muttered to himself. "You're seeing things." But then he noticed the frost. a thin layer of white frost covering the back seat upholstery. It hadn't been there an hour ago. He wiped a finger across it. The frost melted instantly, revealing something simple and unmistakable beneath. A handprint. Slender. A woman's handprint. He staggered back. Someone had been inside his car. He followed Dr. Aurora home, trailing her taillights all the way through the outskirts of town until she pulled into her driveway. Not once did he see another car behind them. Yet Rowan still felt watched. He waited until she was inside safely before driving off, heading instead toward the harbor, where Marissa Vance had told him to meet her again if anything changed. Everything had changed. Fog clung to the old boathouse like cobwebs when he arrived. He stepped inside, gun holstered but ready. "Marissa?" he called softly. No answer. He moved deeper inside. Still nothing. Just dripping water. Ropes swaying from the ceiling. Something glimmered on the floor. A small silver chain. He knelt and picked it up. A necklace. Cheap, tarnished. A charm shaped like a little brass bird. He remembered it instantly. Marissa wearing it in her high school photos. Before he could process this, a whisper drifted from the shadows. "You're too late." Rowan spun. "Marissa?" The whisper came again, this time behind him. "Shouldn't have brought her here." Rowan's blood ran cold. "Who?" he whispered. "Who did I bring?" "The doctor?" "Dr. Aurora?" Rowan's pulse seized. "What do you mean?" He followed. He always follows. Rowan's heart slammed in his chest. Who followed? A deeper voice answered from the darkness behind him. "Me." Rowan whipped around, drawing his gun. A figure stood at the far end of the boathouse. Still watching. Not stepping forward. Not moving at all. Just a shape that seemed carved from shadow. The curator. Rowan aimed for center mass. "Don't move." The figure didn't speak. Didn't breathe. Just stared. Rowan took a step back. "I said..." Then the lights flickered. When they returned, the figure was suddenly closer. 10 feet away. Rowan's heart seized. He hadn't heard a step. Hadn't heard a breath. He fired. 1 shot. 2, 3. The bullets pierced the figure's chest, but instead of reacting, it simply evaporated like smoke, dispersing into the cold air. Rowan staggered backward. A whisper curled behind him. "You can't kill what's been preserved." Nothing. Just fog. And then something slammed into his back with paralyzing force, sending him crashing to the wooden floor. The air punched out of his lungs. His vision blurred. A cold hand clamped around his throat. He clawed at it, feeling fingers like iron bars. A face leaned close, wrong somehow, stretched too thin, eyes too dark, smile too wide. Not human. A voice slithered out. "You're next in the collection?" Rowan's vision darkened. His breath failed. A scream exploded through the boathouse. Terrified. "Dr. Aurora." The hand released. The figure vanished. Rowan gasped, crawling to his feet. He sprinted outside, heart pounding, lungs burning. Across the harbor, Dr. Aurora stood beneath a street lamp, frozen in place, staring at something behind her. Rowan ran toward her and saw Eleanor Price standing inches from her. Fully thawed. Fully awake. Smiling. Briar Ridge was a town that preferred its dirt swept under the rug, its secrets kept in locked basements, and its whispers drowned under church bells. But as Detective Lila Hart drove through its quiet streets on a cold October evening, she felt those secrets clawing up from beneath the surface like weeds breaking through concrete. Her headlights washed over rows of weather-beaten houses, front porches sagging, windows dark, and the uneasy stillness that came after a funeral. People walked their dogs quickly. Blinds shifted when her patrol car drove past. The case of Ella Carter, the missing 12-year-old who vanished from her bedroom 3 nights earlier, had sunk sharp teeth into the collective consciousness of the town. And Lila knew from experience. When a town goes silent, the truth is screaming somewhere. The sky was a smothered gray, layers of storm clouds thick as wool. The air tasted metallic before lightning cracked the horizon. Lila pulled up to the Carter residence. The house was lit only by a dim porch bulb, flickering as if signaling distress. A gust of wind rattled the autumn leaves across the lawn, sweeping them against the porch steps like brittle warning signs. She had been here twice already. But tonight, she wasn't coming to re-interview grief-stricken parents. She was coming because the neighbor across the street had called police dispatch, voice trembling, claiming she saw someone, or something, in Ella's bedroom window. A third-floor window. The same room detectives had searched thoroughly. The same room with a locked door and security bars that were supposedly tampered with from the inside. The same room that had been empty for 76 hours. Lila stepped out of the car and approached the house. The front door opened before she could knock. Helena Carter, pale and hollow-eyed from lack of sleep, clung to the frame as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. Did the neighbor say what she saw? Helena whispered. Lila swallowed. She couldn't tell the woman the full report. A figure moving, a shadow pacing, a girl's silhouette. It was probably nothing, Lila said softly. But I want to check the room again. Just to be sure. Helena nodded slowly. The room's how you left it. We haven't touched anything. Inside, the house smelled of untouched meals, stale coffee, and grief. Helena led her upstairs, each step a creaking complaint under her weight. When they reached the third floor, Helena hesitated at the hallway entrance. I can't go in again, she whispered. Lila nodded. It's okay. I'll handle it. She stepped into the narrow hallway. A single bulb flickered overhead, its filament buzzing like a trapped fly. When she reached the door to Ella's room, she paused. The air felt colder, wrong, like walking into a draft that hadn't been there seconds before. She ran her gloved fingers along the knob, no dust disturbed, no scratches or pry marks, and pushed the door open. The room inside was frozen in time. Stuffed animals arranged neatly on the bed. A row of trophies along the shelf, spelling bee awards, science fair ribbons. The window where Ella was last seen was half open, curtains swaying gently despite the absence of a breeze. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room in a white strobe. Lila stepped forward. The wooden floor creaked under her boots, echoing too loudly in the silence. She inspected the window. The latch had been snapped clean, as if forced from the inside, but there were no signs of climbing, no footprints on the sill, no smudges on the glass. She turned toward the nightstand. On it sat Ella's favorite book, The Glass Garden, left open to the same chapter Lila remembered seeing 3 nights ago. The illustration on the page showed a girl standing before a mirror, but the reflection wasn't her. Lila felt her chest tighten. She examined the wall beside the bed. There was again that faint tapping sound, like fingernails, like someone inside the walls trying to make contact. But that was impossible. She leaned her ear closer. She drew her flashlight and swept it across the room. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. Thunder rumbled outside. Then her phone buzzed. She nearly jumped. A known number. Against her better judgment, she swiped to answer. Detective Hart, she said quietly. Static crackled through the speaker. Hello? The voice was faint and high-pitched, breathy, trembling. A child's voice. Lila's heart stopped. Ella, she whispered. More static. Window. The call dropped. Lila stared at the phone. Her pulse hammered against her ribs. The window. She turned toward it. The curtain fluttered again, this time violently, as if swatted by an unseen hand. Lightning cracked, exploding white light into the room. For a brief second, just a second, a figure stood reflected in the glass. A girl, wearing pajamas. Eyes dark and hollow. Mouth open in a silent scream. Hair whipping back as if underwater. Then the reflection vanished with the lightning. Lila stepped back, breath caught in her throat. Her flashlight trembled in her hand as she moved to the window, pushed the curtain aside, and leaned out into the night. Nothing. Just wind and rain. She pulled herself back inside and shut the window firmly. For a moment she steadied her breathing, but then she heard a soft thud behind her. She spun around. The bedroom closet door, closed moments ago, now stood slightly ajar. Darkness seeping through the crack like ink. Her instinct screamed. She grabbed the handle and yanked the door open. Her flashlight beam illuminated the small space. dresses hanging neatly, shoes aligned on a rack. Empty. But then, a cold breath blew across her ear. "Help me!" Lila spun around. No one. She felt her skin crawl. She steadied herself and pushed deeper into the closet, running the flashlight across every inch. At the very back, behind a row of boxes, she saw something odd. A small square wooden panel in the wall, about 12 inches wide. There was a tiny metal handle attached. A crawlspace? That made no sense. The house blueprints from the investigation didn't include a hidden compartment. She knelt and tugged the handle. The panel slid open with a groan. A stale, icy gust blew out, carrying the scent of damp earth and something else, something old and metallic. Her flashlight barely pierced the darkness within. Then she saw it. A scrap of fabric lodged against the interior wall. She reached in and pulled it out. A piece of cloth, torn at the edges, patterned with tiny white stars. Helena's voice echoed in her memory. She was wearing her pink pajamas. The ones with the stars. She loved those. Lila's stomach dropped. Her hands shook. Ella had been here. Recently. Her radio crackled suddenly, making her jerk back. "Dispatch to Detective Hart," the operator said. Lila grabbed her radio. "Go ahead." Another call came in from across the street. The same neighbor. She says she saw the girl again. In the window. Right now. Lila froze. She turned her head slowly toward the bedroom window. The curtains were still. The room was silent. But in the glass reflection, a faint shape moved behind her. She spun around. Nothing. Her breath quickened. "Copy that," she said into her radio. "I'm still in the room. Tell patrol to hold position." She approached the window again, this time pulling the curtains wide open. Rain streaked the glass, creating warped reflections. She scanned the glass. Behind her, the room swayed in the dim glow of her flashlight. Then she saw it again. A shadow moving near the closet. Slow. Deliberate. She spun, flashlight aimed. But the shadow wasn't in the room. It was inside the crawlspace. Lila crouched again and aimed her flashlight deeper. Something shifted in the darkness. Her throat tightened. "Ella," she whispered. A soft sob answered her. Her heart leapt painfully. "It's okay, sweetheart," she said, voice cracking. "I'm coming. I'm going to get you out. Can you reach my hand?" Silence. A whisper. "Don't, he's coming." A cold wave rolled through Lila's body. "Who's coming?" she asked. Another sob. A voice behind her. A man's voice. Almost too close. Detective Hart. She turned sharply and came face to face with someone she never expected to see in that house. Detective Lila Hart's body reacted before her mind could catch up. She took one quick step back, hand instinctively reaching for the grip of her holstered weapon as she turned to face the voice behind her. Standing in the doorway of Ella Carter's bedroom was Sheriff Donovan Ridge, his broad frame outlined by the flickering hallway light. His uniform was damp from the rain, hat pulled low, eyes shadowed. "Jesus, Sheriff," Lila snapped, chest tight with adrenaline. "You scared the hell out of me." Ridge didn't smile. Didn't apologize. He just looked at her. Looked past her. Looked toward the closet. "What are you doing up here alone?" he asked quietly. Lila forced her heartbeat to settle. Dispatch said the neighbors saw movement in the window again. "I came to check it out." His jaw tightened. "And?" Lila hesitated. Should she tell him? About the voice? The crawlspace? The torn fabric? She'd worked with Ridge for years. He was respected, steady, calm under pressure. But something in his expression felt off. Maybe it was exhaustion. He'd barely slept since the search began. "I found a crawlspace behind the closet," she said. "Wasn't on the blueprints." Ridge blinked slowly, then stepped inside the room, boots heavy on the hardwood floor. "You think Ella was in there?" he asked. "I know she was," Lila said, lifting the pink scrap of fabric. "This is from her pajamas." Ridge stared at it. His expression barely changed. "Helena said those were the pajamas she went missing in," he murmured. Lila nodded. Ridge took a step closer to the closet. She followed him with her eyes, noting how stiffly he moved, like he was thinking through each step. "Show me," he said. Lila slowly moved aside, pointing her flashlight into the crawlspace's darkness. The cold air from inside prickled her skin. Ridge crouched, peering in. But instead of leaning closer, he stopped, shoulders tensing. "Something wrong?" Lila asked. He didn't turn around. "That crawlspace," Ridge said. "It shouldn't exist. This house, this entire row, was built on a tight grid structure. No dead space. No hollow walls. That's why we didn't find." He cut himself off. Lila knelt beside him. "Did you hear that?" They both went still. From inside the crawlspace came the faintest sound. Not a sob. Not a whisper. But breathing. Terrified. A child's breathing. Lila's pulse surged. She lowered herself, reaching toward the opening. "Ella? Sweetheart, can you pull yourself toward my voice?" The breathing stopped. Silence crushed the room. A scratching sound, like fingers dragging across wood. "Ella?" Lila whispered again. A soft voice answered. "It's dark." Lila's heart broke. It was her. It was really her. "It's okay," she said, voice trembling with relief. "I'm here. We're going to get you out." She reached farther into the crawlspace. Ridge grabbed her arm suddenly. Lila whipped around. "Sheriff, what are you?" His grip tightened. "Don't go in," he said sharply. "Why the hell not?" she snapped. "She's right there." But Ridge didn't look afraid for her. He looked afraid of something else entirely. "Something's not right," he muttered. "That space shouldn't lead anywhere. It shouldn't even exist." Lila yanked her arm free. "I don't care about the architecture right now. She's alive." She turned toward the crawlspace again and froze. The voice was gone. The breathing had stopped. Silence, heavy and suffocating, filled the space. "No," Lila whispered, stomach dropping. "Ella?" "Nothing." She leaned in farther. Still nothing. Ridge stood behind her, his posture rigid, hands clenched. "Step back," he ordered. "No." "Detective Hart." "I said no." She turned, eyes blazing. "If Ella's in there, I'm not leaving her. You can stay out of my way or help." Ridge's jaw tightened. A muscle jumped in his cheek. "We'll extract her," he said at last. "But we're doing it safely." He reached for his radio. "Sheriff Ridge to search Team Bravo." Before he could finish, Lila's phone buzzed. She flinched, then looked down. Unknown number again. Her blood iced over. She answered instantly. "Ella?" Silence. Then static. Then a tiny voice, no louder than a breath. "He's coming." Lila felt every hair rise on her arms. Ridge's eyes flicked toward her. What did she say? Before Lila could answer, the static spiked. Then the call ended abruptly. The phone went dead. No signal. No battery icon. Just black. Lila stared at it, throat tightening. "Sheriff." Ella's scared. "Someone has her." Ridge didn't respond. Instead, he walked slowly toward the window and looked out across the street. The neighbor's house was dark, blinds drawn tight. "Ridge," Lila said quietly. "Talk to me." He didn't turn around. After a long moment, he said, "This neighbor, the one making the calls. Did you ever meet her?" Lila frowned. "No. Dispatch only said it was the woman across the street." Ridge nodded slowly. "Then let's go talk to her." Lila glanced back at the crawlspace. Everything in her screamed that Ella was, or had been, right there. But Ridge was already heading for the door, his shoulders tense. She gave the crawlspace one last look. "I'll come back," she whispered under her breath. And she followed him out. The neighbor across the street. The rain had intensified, pelting the windshield as Lila and Ridge approached the small blue house opposite the Carter residence. It looked ordinary, neat yard, trimmed hedges, porch light glowing warm yellow. But something about it felt wrong. Too still. Too quiet. Ridge led the way, stepping onto the porch. He knocked twice. No answer. He knocked harder. Briar Ridge Sheriff's Department. Still nothing. Lila peered through the front window. The living room was empty. A mug of tea sat on a coaster, steam long gone. A blanket lay on the arm of the couch. Lights were on. Someone had been here minutes ago. Ridge tried the door. Unlocked. He pushed it open. "Ma'am?" Lila called. "We're responding to your call. Are you here?" Thunder cracked overhead. They stepped inside, and immediately smelled copper. Blood. Lila drew her gun. Ridge did the same. They moved room to room with practiced caution. Kitchen empty. Bathroom clean. Bedroom, bed rumpled, lamps on. Then they entered the guest room, and Lila's breath caught in her throat. A woman lay slumped against the wall, eyes open, mouth parted in a permanent gasp. Her phone was still in her hand. Her throat was bruised. Her fingernails broken. Her legs bent awkwardly beneath her. But worst of all, her face was twisted in pure terror. Ridge knelt beside her, jaw clenched. "She's been dead for hours," he muttered. Lila stared at him. "Hours?" "Yes. But we got a call from her 20 minutes ago." Ridge stood slowly. "That wasn't her." As Lila's stomach turned, her gaze dropped to the carpet near the woman's foot. A footprint. Well, a child's. Lila's breath caught. "Ella was here," she whispered. Ridge didn't respond. He walked to the window and stared across the street at the Carter house. "Sheriff," Lila said. He still didn't move. Finally, he said in a low voice, "I don't think Ella was calling for help from that crawl space." Lila blinked. "What are you talking about?" He turned toward her. His expression was grim. "Haunted. I think Ella is being moved," he said. "I think someone is keeping her one step ahead of us." Lila's skin crawled. "But we're missing something," Ridge continued. "Something big. Whoever killed this woman, whoever took Ella, knows that house inside and out." Lila felt the truth like a punch. "Sheriff, who originally built the Carter house?" Ridge hesitated. "You're not going to like the answer," he said. "Tell me." He exhaled slowly. "It was built by a man named Jonas Hale." Lila froze. That couldn't be. Jonas Hale. The man who vanished 22 years ago. The man believed to have kidnapped 5 children, none of whom were ever found. And the worst part? He was Ridge's mentor. Lila whispered. "He designed the crawl spaces, didn't he?" Ridge nodded once. Lila felt the room tilt. "Sheriff, if Hale is alive." "He's not," Ridge said firmly. Too firmly. "He died years ago." But Lila saw the flicker in his eyes. The doubt. The fear. She stepped closer. "Ridge, is there something you haven't told me?" The sheriff hesitated. There was a sudden shattering noise behind them. Glass exploding. They spun around, guns raised. The living room window had been smashed from the inside. Wind and rain blew in violently. And on the floor beneath the shattered glass, something glinted under the lightning. Lila approached slowly, heart pounding. It was a small object, patterned with tiny white stars. Ella's pajama top. But it wasn't just lying there. It was placed there, like a message, a warning, or an invitation. Lila's blood turned cold. Ridge stared at it with a look of pure dread. "She's not running," Lila whispered. "She's being dragged." Ridge swallowed hard. "And we're running out of time." Lightning flashed again. And for a brief, impossible moment, Lila saw a small figure standing in the street. A girl, soaked in rain, hair plastered to her face, staring straight at her. Lila blinked, and the girl vanished. For a moment, Detective Lila Hart forgot how to breathe. The image of the little rain-soaked girl standing in the street, small, trembling, watching her, had felt so real, so close, it was as if Lila could have reached through the glass and grabbed her. "Sheriff, did you see that?" she gasped. Ridge didn't answer immediately. He stood at the broken window, eyes narrowed, scanning the empty street illuminated only by thunder flashes. Rain hammered the pavement. Wind bent the oak trees lining the sidewalk. But the girl was gone. She had vanished as quickly as she appeared. "I saw something," he said finally. "I don't know if it was her." Lila's hands shook. She had seen Ella's photo 100 times in the past few days. She could draw her face in her sleep. And the girl outside, whatever she was, had the same shape, the same height, the same familiar pink pajama sleeve. It was her, Lila whispered fiercely. I know it. Ridge didn't respond. Instead, he crouched and picked up the pajama top lying among the glass shards. He held it like it was something dangerous, something radioactive. Fresh tear, he murmured, tracing the edge. Someone ripped this off her in the last hour. Lila's stomach turned. So whoever has her, they're nearby. Ridge nodded. Very. He looked out across the street again. Get your gloves, he said quietly. We're going back to the Carter house. Lila blinked. No? We should call the search team. No, Ridge snapped. The sudden sharpness in his voice startled her. We can't make noise. We can't alert him. Him, Lila repeated slowly. You think Hale? I don't know what I think, Ridge said. But someone's playing a game. Someone knows our every move. They knew you'd come here. They knew the neighbor called. They knew. He stopped. Lila studied him. Sheriff Ridge, you're shaking. He wasn't just shaking. He was terrified. She had never seen him like this. Not once. Let's go, he said simply, avoiding her eyes. And with that, he stepped out into the storm. The walk back across the street. The wind pushed against their raincoats as they crossed the road, boots splashing in ankle-deep puddles. The Carter house sat dark and silent, its windows like hollow eyes watching them return. Lila kept glancing at the shadows around them. She kept expecting to see the little girl again, standing in the bushes, or behind a tree, or crouched near the curb. But Ella didn't appear. Not even a whisper. Not even a flicker. Ridge stopped at the base of the porch steps. Before we go in, he said, voice low, you need to understand something. Lila faced him. What? He stared at the house long enough that Lila wondered if he was going to refuse to speak. Then he said, this house wasn't built to code. Lila frowned. We already know that. No, Ridge said tensely. I mean it was built with rooms inside of rooms. Spaces that don't appear on blueprints. Compartments. Passages. Lila felt her throat tighten. Why? For him, Ridge said. For Hale. For Hale to what, Sheriff? Ridge's eyes hardened. To hide people. Lightning cracked above them. Lila stared at the house. You're telling me, she said slowly, that the man who built this house, the man who abducted children 22 years ago, designed it with secret passages so he could. Yes. And you knew this? Ridge's jaw flexed. I suspected, he said. I didn't know. Lila stepped closer. You said he was dead. He should be, Ridge growled. He was dying when he disappeared. He had a degenerative spinal disease. He couldn't move on his own by the end. He couldn't have. A loud creak came from the porch above them. Lila jerked her gun up. Ridge stiffened. They both stared at the front door. It was open. Just barely. An inch. But it had been shut when they left. On my mark, Lila whispered. Ridge nodded, lifting his weapon. They climbed the steps, slow and silent. Another creak. Another shift of the wood. The storm wind howled, rattling the gutters. Lila touched the door with 2 fingers. It swung open silently. The house breathed cold air into the night. Ridge's voice dropped to a whisper. He wants us to come in. Lila swallowed. Then let's go catch him. They stepped inside. The house isn't empty. The moment they crossed the threshold, Lila felt it. A presence. Heavy. Watching. Waiting. The temperature dropped instantly, cold enough that she saw her breath cloud in front of her. Ridge wiped rain from his brow and whispered, gun up. They moved through the living room, past the darkened kitchen, past the hallway leading toward Ella's bedroom. The house had changed. Something about the silence felt different. Hungrier. A thud upstairs. Second floor, Lila whispered. They crept up the steps, guns raised. At the top, Lila paused. The hallway was darker than before. Like the shadows themselves had deepened. Like someone had sucked the light out of the bulbs. She flicked her flashlight on. The beam hit the bedroom door. Ella's bedroom door. The same door that had been opened before. Ridge whispered, heart, wait. But Lila didn't. She turned the knob. The door swung inward. And her breath caught. The crawlspace is open again. The closet door was wide open. The crawlspace panel had been removed. The opening yawned black and bottomless. And in front of it was a small, wet footprint. Another. And another. Leading from the crawlspace. To the middle of the room. Toward the window. And then gone. Vanished. Lila stepped closer, heart hammering. "Ella," she whispered. Silence answered her. But the air inside the room smelled strange. Like wet earth. Like the inside of a deep cave. Ridge moved in beside her. His face was pale. "He built these," he murmured. "Hail." "Yes," Ridge said. "He used them as..." A sound cut him off. So, barely audible. A whisper. From inside the crawlspace. "Lila." Her name. Not a child's voice. A man's. Lila's blood turned to ice. Ridge grabbed her shoulder. "Don't respond." But it was too late. She already had. "Who are you?" Silence fell. A low, breathy laugh drifted from the darkness. A laugh that sounded like dry leaves brushing across concrete. Followed by a voice. Not whispering now. Speaking clearly. "You're late." Lila's gun shook in her hand. "Show yourself," she said. Another laugh. Deeper this time. "I showed myself hours ago," the voice murmured. "You just didn't see me." Ridge stepped in front of Lila, weapon pointed at the crawlspace. "Get away from there." "No," the voice rasped. "Come closer." Something crawled forward. Not a person. Not fully. Two pale hands emerged first. Then a forehead. A nose. A grin too wide to be human. Lila froze as the face slid into the beam of her flashlight. Sunken cheeks. Deep eye sockets. Skin stretched tight like parchment. Jonas Hale. Alive. At least part of him. "Hello, Donovan," he croaked, grinning at Ridge. "It's been a long time." Ridge staggered back like he'd been punched. "You," his voice cracked. "You're supposed to be dead." Hale laughed again. "Almost. But dying men are hard to catch." Lila raised her gun. "Where is Ella?" Hale's eyes, sunken, yellowed, shifted toward her. "She's safe." Lila's pulse hammered. "Where?" His grin widened. "Downstairs," he whispered. "Below the floorboards. In the place I built, for you." Lila froze. "For me?" Hale tilted his head. "You were always going to come here. You were always going to follow her." Ridge roared, "Don't you touch that child." Hale's eyes flared. "I touched none," he hissed. "I only kept them." Lila's stomach twisted. "Kept?" But before she could finish, Hale lunged. Not at her. At Ridge. He tackled the sheriff sideways, screaming in a hoarse, animal growl. They crashed into the dresser, wood splintering. "Ridge!" Lila shouted. She raised her gun but couldn't get a clean shot. Hale was fast. Much too fast for someone supposedly dying. Ridge slammed an elbow into Hale's throat. Hale shrieked, scrambling backward on all fours with unnatural speed before vanishing into the crawlspace. Lila lunged forward, too late. Hale was gone. Ridge staggered to his feet, gasping. Lila ran to him. "Are you hurt?" "No," he rasped. "But he won't get far." He turned to the crawlspace. "We go after him." Lila swallowed. "Sheriff, that space was not built for adults." "I know," Ridge said. "That's why he thinks we won't follow." He grabbed a flashlight from his belt. And then the floor beneath them shook. A distant thud. Then another. Lila spun toward the hallway. The sound was coming from below. From the first floor. From beneath the floorboards. Ridge heard it too. "He's trying to move her." Lila turned back to the crawlspace. Whatever Hale wanted, whatever trap he'd prepared, none of it mattered. Not if Ella was alive. "We go now," she said. Ridge nodded once. And together, they crawled into the darkness. The storm rolled in without warning, thick, bruised clouds smothering the moon, turning the sky into a heavy lid that pressed down on the world. Detective Rowan Hale stood outside the rotting farmhouse at the edge of the Bentley orchard, the wind cutting sideways across the fields like sharp, cold fingers. It wasn't supposed to storm tonight. But then again, nothing about this case followed rules. Not time, not reason, not the living, not the dead. Inside that house waited the only person who could answer the questions that had devoured months of Rowan's life. Inside that house waited Ivy Marrow, the elusive caretaker. The woman seen in 3 different decades without aging a day. The name that appeared in witness statements spanning 40 years. The woman who knew exactly what had happened to the 6 missing victims. And the woman who had reached out to Rowan personally, telling him to come alone, just before midnight. Lightning shuddered across the sky, and the orchard lit up, rows of twisted black trees, their bare limbs clawing upward, dripping with rainwater and something that looked too dark to just be sap. Rowan swallowed hard and stepped onto the porch. The house groaned beneath him, boards warped and swollen. The front door was cracked open, a soft glow flickering inside, lamplight, trembling as though someone had been crying near it. Rowan holstered his gun. Ivy had said she would not respond well to weapons. He wasn't sure why he trusted her enough to comply. Perhaps desperation, perhaps exhaustion. Or perhaps something about her calm, steady voice had worked its way past his guard. Knock. His knuckles tapped the wood. The door drifted wider, not kicked, not pulled, merely widening as though the house itself had been waiting for him. He stepped inside. The keeper of the house. "I was wondering if you'd turn back." The voice floated from the corner of the dim front room. Rowan snapped his gaze to her. Ivy Marrow sat on a wooden chair facing an old stone fireplace. Her back was straight, hands folded neatly in her lap. She wore a heavy wool dress, gray, plain, seamless. Her hair was long, black, parted perfectly down the center. Her face was pale, almost translucent, as if the storm outside had washed the color away. But her eyes, those were alive. Bright, dark green, sharp enough to slice through him. "I said I'd come," Rowan said. "You told me you had answers." "I do. But you won't like them." Rowan took a cautious step forward. "Start with the victims." Ivy didn't move, didn't blink. "They were chosen," she said softly. "Each of them. For the same reason." "What reason?" Lightning flashed. The fire in the fireplace flickered violently. "The orchard," she whispered. "It wants what was taken from it." Rowan stiffened. "You're going to have to be more specific than that. People are dead. 6 of them. One of them a little boy." Ivy finally turned her head, slow, deliberate, until she faced him directly. "I know, detective. I know all their names, all their ages, all their faces. I know the way the orchard pulled at them." Her voice wavered. "And I know what it demands next." Rowan's heart sank. "Next? What do you mean next?" For the first time, Ivy looked afraid. "You don't understand," she said. "It's already chosen. It always chooses early." "Chosen who?" But Ivy didn't answer. Not verbally. Her eyes flickered, downward, toward the floor beneath them. Rowan froze. It was then he heard it. A sound beneath the house. A slow dragging. Something brushing wood. Something alive. The roots below. Rowan drew back, one hand instinctively shifting toward his holster, even though he'd promised not to use it. "I thought you said there would be no weapons," Ivy murmured. "You didn't tell me something was under the house." Her lips thinned. "Not something. Not anymore." The dragging continued, slow, rhythmic, scraping along the beams. Then a low, warbling moan rose from beneath the house, vibrating the floorboards. Rowan stepped back. "What is that?" "The orchard," Ivy whispered. "A piece of it, anyway." He stared at her. "That doesn't make any sense." "It makes all the sense in the world if you know the history. This farmhouse isn't just on the orchard, it's the heart of it. The original root system snakes beneath this property." Her hands tightened in her lap. "And what roots absorb, they keep." "Absorb?" Rowan shook his head. "You're talking like this orchard is alive." Lightning cracked across the sky. The moan from below answered it. Ivy's voice lowered to a trembling hush. "It is." Before Rowan could respond, the floor shuddered beneath them. Ivy rose abruptly. We don't have much time. For what? For it to realize you're here. The moaning deepened, throaty, hungry, wet. Rowan stepped forward. Ivy, what are you talking about? Start from the beginning. Ivy ran a hand through her hair, pacing the room like a trapped animal. Have you ever wondered why this orchard failed so quickly? Why no one could grow anything here after the fire? Why people kept disappearing on this land long before your 6 victims? Rowan narrowed his eyes. The Bentley Orchard fire was 30 years ago. Started in the processing barn. 3 men died. There's no record of disappearances before that. Not recorded disappearances, Ivy corrected. Children. Runaways. People no one looked for. The orchard takes the forgotten first. And now? Rowan asked sharply. Ivy stopped walking. Now the orchard is starving. The ghosts of harvests past. Rowan felt his throat tighten. Explain. Now. Ivy approached the fireplace, placing a hand on the stone as though grounding herself. Long before the orchard existed, this land belonged to a woman named Beatrice Lovell. A healer, some called her. A witch, others insisted. Her greatest secret was her garden, a patch of black soil that grew herbs unlike anything anyone had seen. Herbs. Rowan frowned. What does that have to do with? Her garden was fed, Ivy interjected, not by sun or rain, but by grief. Rowan felt cold flood his chest. No, he said quietly. Don't turn this into folklore. It isn't folklore, detective. It's lineage. Ivy's eyes glowed in the firelight. When Beatrice died, she left behind a curse, intentionally or not. The soil remembered what fed it. And when the Bentley family planted their orchard here, they dug into that same soil. She took a step closer to him, and the orchard woke up hungry. The house shuddered again, more violently this time. Rowan staggered. I know you don't believe me, Ivy said, but you've seen the bodies. No signs of struggle. No traces of poison. No ligature marks. They simply went still, as though something pulled the life from them. Rowan clenched his jaw. That doesn't explain why there were roots inside their lungs. Ivy's expression darkened. That was never meant to happen. The orchard is growing desperate. It's taking more than just what it needs. And what does it need? Rowan asked, voice low. Fear, Ivy breathed. Memory. It feeds on the parts of us that rot. Rowan shook his head slowly. This is insane. Ivy stepped closer, her voice breaking. It isn't. Not if you've lived with it as long as I have. Rowan froze. He remembered the witness statements. Ivy Marrow seen in 1992. Again in 2007. Again last year. Same face. Same age. Rowan's breath hitched. How long is long? He asked carefully. Ivy swallowed. I stopped counting after 80. The Chosen. Rowan staggered back. That's impossible. Yes, Ivy whispered. I thought so too. The moaning beneath the floor rose abruptly, becoming a violent thrum that rattled picture frames and sent dust spiraling from the rafters. Ivy flinched. It knows I'm telling you. Tell me what? Ivy's eyes glistened with tears she fought not to shed. Why it chose the first 6 victims, and why it has chosen the 7th. Rowan felt a chill pierce him. Who? Ivy inhaled shakily. The orchard chooses those who carry pain. Secrets. Wounds left unhealed. It feeds on the rot inside us. It sensed it in the others. She looked at him with devastating clarity. And now, Rowan, it senses it in you. His breath caught. No. Ivy nodded once. The orchard has marked you. And if we don't act now, it will take you before sunrise. The floor buckled violently, boards snapping, splintering upward like broken ribs. Rowan stumbled as a burst of hot, foul-smelling air exploded from beneath the wood. The moan turned into a shrill, shrieking roar. Ivy grabbed Rowan's wrist. We have to go. Now. A root shot up from the floorboards, thick, black, twisting like a muscular serpent. It slammed into the ceiling inches from Rowan's head. Rowan stared, stunned. It was real. It was alive. And it was coming straight for him. Ivy yanked him toward the back door. It's coming. Her voice cracked. And it won't stop until it has you. Into the blood orchard. They burst outside into the storm. Rain hammered Rowan's face, cold and punishing. The orchard loomed ahead, rows of blackened, skeletal trees swaying violently, their branches whipping like claws trying to snatch lightning from the sky. Ivy pulled him toward a narrow path between the trees. Where are we going? Rowan shouted over the thunder. To the heart, Ivy shouted back. To the place where it was born. Rowan's boots sank into mud that felt strangely warm, like stepping on skin. The trees swayed harder, trunks bending toward him, branches grasping. The storm raged, the sky opening up in a deafening roar, but beneath it he could still hear it. A voice. Not human. Not animal. A chorus of low, hungry moans, echoing from the orchard in every direction. Rowan's chest tightened. How do we stop it? He yelled. You don't, Ivy said breathlessly. You don't stop the orchard. You only bargain with it. What kind of bargain? The only kind it understands. Ivy's hand tightened around his. A sacrifice. Rowan stopped dead. No. Ivy turned to him, soaked, shaking, terrified. Rowan, the orchard has chosen you. If you don't give it what it wants... Lightning struck a tree beside them with a blinding flash. The tree didn't burn. It screamed. Rowan stumbled backward, horror ripping through him. What does it want? He demanded. Thunder rolled. The orchard moaned in answer. Ivy's voice was barely audible. It wants the truth you've been hiding. Rowan's stomach dropped. No, he whispered. Not that. The guilt, Ivy said softly. The one you buried. The one eating at you. The one that almost destroyed you. Rowan squeezed his eyes shut. Rowan, Ivy pleaded, you have to tell me what happened. What you've been hiding. If you don't say it, if you don't face it, the orchard will take you whole. Roots erupted behind them, tearing through the ground like spears. Rowan staggered back. He had no choice. He had to tell her. He had to finally speak the secret that had haunted him for years. The storm boomed overhead. The orchard hissed. Ivy held his face between her trembling hands. Tell me. Rowan swallowed hard, opened his mouth, and the orchard went silent. The orchard went silent, completely, unnervingly silent. No wind rattled the branches. No rain tapped the leaves. Even the thunder seemed to hold its breath. It was waiting for Rowan Hale to speak the truth he had buried so deep he'd convinced himself no one would ever dig it up. But the orchard had found it, smelled it, fed on it from a distance. Guilt was its nectar, and Rowan had carried enough of it to poison a small town. Ivy stood before him in the storm, her hair plastered to her face, her hands gripping his shoulders hard enough to bruise. Her eyes, green, ancient, endless, bored into him. Rowan, she whispered, you have to say it. He swallowed. Lightning flashed behind her, slicing the orchard into pale skeletal rows. The roots beneath them pulsed, shifting like something breathing under the soil. I can't, Rowan muttered. You must. I can't. Ivy's voice broke into a scream. If you don't tell it, IT will take you. The orchard answered with a deep, monstrous moan. Roots burst from the ground behind Rowan, thick, black, writhing like snakes smelling blood. He staggered forward. Stop. Stop, please. The roots lunged, then halted just inches from his legs, curling and uncurling like hungry fingers. Waiting. Rowan pressed both hands over his face. The rain ran down his skin like tears he refused to shed. It was my fault, he whispered. Ivy leaned closer. Louder. It was my fault, Rowan repeated, voice trembling. What was? Rowan's breath came in ragged bursts. The accident. Ivy nodded slowly. Go on. Rowan squeezed his eyes shut. He had kept this buried for years, long before he became a detective, long before he ever set foot in Bentley Orchard. It was the reason he rarely slept, the reason he hated looking in mirrors, the reason he never allowed himself peace. He had killed someone, and he had walked away from it. I was 22, Rowan said, his voice hollow. Still studying, drinking too much, sleeping too little. I thought I was invincible. The roots hummed beneath the soil, drawing closer. It was late, 2 in the morning. I shouldn't have been driving. I knew that. But I did anyway. His voice cracked. She stepped out into the road. She was just crossing. I didn't see her until I heard the impact. Ivy's expression softened, just barely. Rowan swallowed hard. She lived long enough to look at me. Long enough to say my name. The orchard trembled violently. Ivy whispered, "Her name?" Rowan flinched as though struck. "Elena. Elena Reeves." The orchard shuddered, its branches whipping, roots quivering with something like anticipation. Rowan's voice broke completely. "She begged me to stay," he whispered. "Begged me not to leave her. And I ran. I ran like a coward." Ivy reached up and cupped his face gently. "Rowan, I left her there," he said, choking on the words. "Alone. Dying. I didn't call for help. I didn't even look back. I went home, cleaned the bumper, hid everything. I told myself I'd confess the next day. I didn't." Lightning flashed again. Thunder cracked. The orchard moaned louder, almost in approval. Rowan shuddered as the ground beneath him split, roots slithering up like arms reaching for him. "I let an innocent girl die," Rowan whispered. "And I lied about it. I lived like nothing happened. I built a career. I told myself I would make the world better to make up for it. But you can't fix something like that." The orchard seemed to listen, hungry, eager. "And when I got this case," he continued, "when I started seeing victims with no marks, with no wounds, with roots in their lungs, I thought I was going insane. I thought it was some kind of cosmic punishment." Ivy stepped forward, voice trembling. "It wasn't a punishment. It was a summons." Rowan looked up sharply. "The orchard sensed your guilt," Ivy said. "Your grief. Your rot. It marked you the moment you stepped onto its land." "And the victims?" Rowan rasped. Ivy closed her eyes briefly. "They were drawn to it for their own reasons. But you, Rowan, you were never investigating this. You were being courted by it." The orchard's branches bowed in the wind, almost as though acknowledging her words. Rowan felt sick. "So what happens now?" I confessed. "Is that enough?" Ivy shook her head slowly. "No confession is complete until the orchard takes its due." "What does that mean?" The roots beneath their feet surged upward, snapping through the mud like harpoons. Rowan staggered back. "Ivy!" She grabbed his wrist. "Rowan, listen to me. The orchard feeds on unresolved pain. Now that you've spoken the truth, it's weakened. Just a little. Enough for us to make it to the center." The center! Where the first seed was planted. Where Beatrice Lovell buried the thing she created. The place where the orchard gets its power. The roots writhed beneath them. A scream echoed across the orchard, long, low, hollow. Rowan jerked his head around. What was that? Ivy's grip tightened. That was the orchard realizing you no longer belonged to it. For the first time, Rowan saw fear in her eyes, not for herself, but for him. "We have to go," she said urgently. Before Rowan could respond, a root shot up from the ground and wrapped around his ankle, tightening like a vice. He yelled, stumbling into Ivy. "Rowan!" she screamed. He dug his nails into the mud, trying to rip the root off, but it was too strong. It burned where it touched him, hot and alive, like a brand pressed into his skin. "It doesn't want to let you go," Ivy cried. Rowan grit his teeth. "Then help me." Ivy reached into her coat and pulled out something Rowan never expected. A knife. Old, rusted, its blade carved with symbols that looked older than the orchard itself. "What is that?" Rowan gasped. "Beatrice Lovell's ritual blade," Ivy said, voice shaking. "The only thing the orchard fears." "How did you?" "I told you," she said quietly. "I've been here a long time." Ivy dropped to her knees and slashed the root. It shrieked, an unearthly, piercing sound, then recoiled, snapping back into the soil. Rowan gasped for breath. Mud splattered across his clothes and hands. "I told you," Ivy said through panting breaths. "It's starving, but it won't give you up without a fight." Rowan forced himself to stand. "Then let's finish this." But Ivy didn't move. She looked at him with something like sorrow. There's more you need to know. Rowan frowned. No, Ivy, we don't have time. We don't, she agreed. But you must hear this. The storm resumed, wind whipping her hair across her face. You asked me earlier why I haven't aged. Why my name appears in reports spanning decades. Ivy's voice cracked. It's because I am bound to this place. Bound to the orchard. I made a choice long ago. What choice? To stay here, she whispered. To keep it from reaching the town. To live with it. Feed it. Learn its moods. Sail its storms. I kept people away. I kept the orchard calm. And for a while, just long enough, I held it back. Rowan stared at her. You fed it? Ivy didn't flinch. I fed it lies. Regrets. Forgotten memories. My own pain. But I'm not enough anymore. It's growing. Changing. The hunger is too strong now. She reached up and touched Rowan's cheek. That's why it wants you. You carry enough pain to sustain it for decades. Rowan stepped back. No, I'm not dying for this place. I'm not being eaten by a tree. Ivy shook her head. It doesn't want your body. It wants your sorrow. And if I don't give it? Ivy's expression hardened. Then it will take the entire town instead. The orchard roared behind them, branches twisting, trunks splitting open like mouths. Rowan felt the ground tremble. You're telling me, he said slowly, that if I don't go to the center, if I don't let it take me, everyone dies, Ivy whispered. The orchard hissed in agreement. Rowan felt his heart pound. He thought of Elena, of his guilt, of how he had run then, and how running now would doom innocent people. He took a breath. Take me to the center. Ivy nodded, sadness flooding her eyes. You're braver than you think. They turned at the same time, sprinting deeper into the orchard. Rain battered their faces, mud sucking at their boots. The trees bent over them, branches snapping inches from their heads. Roots writhed like serpents across the ground. Within seconds, Rowan realized something horrifying. The orchard wasn't trying to stop Ivy. Only him. Roots slammed into the dirt behind him, missing by inches. Branches whipped across his shoulders, cutting through his coat. A tree trunk cracked open as he passed, releasing a wail that sounded sickeningly human. The orchard wanted him. It needed him. It would not let him escape. Faster! Ivy shouted. They ran. Lightning split the path ahead. Thunder rolled behind them. The orchard howled, furious, starved. And as they reached the final row of trees, those black, monstrous giants guarding the orchard center, they both skidded to a stop. Because standing there, soaked, trembling, and impossibly out of place, was a little girl, dripping with mud, hair tangled, clothing torn. Her eyes, wide, desperate, locked onto Rowan. Help me, she whispered. Rowan's heart stopped. It couldn't be, but it was. Elena Reeves. Alive. Or something wearing her face. She reached out a trembling hand. Rowan, she said, voice breaking. Why did you leave me? Rowan staggered back, breath choking in his throat. No, he whispered. You're not real. Elena stepped forward. Behind her, the orchard screamed. The rain was still falling in thin, needling lines when Detective Mara Hale stepped out of the abandoned mill and into the gray, shivering world outside. Behind her, the echoes of the confrontation with the masked intruder still rattled in her skull. His shrill laughter, the way he vanished into the maze of machinery as if the shadows themselves carried him away. The mill loomed like the ribcage of some enormous dead thing, its broken windows exhaling drafts that smelled of rust and time. Mara touched the torn seam on her jacket where the intruder's knife had grazed her, a shallow wound but a reminder that she was now standing on the thin bridge between survival and obsession. She radioed dispatch. No units had arrived yet. Roads were flooded. The storm had drowned cell towers in static. She was alone. She drew a long, steady breath and climbed into her car. The engine coughed awake, the heater wheezing. Her phone was still dead. The intruder smashing it earlier wasn't an accident. He wanted her cut off. Isolated. Predictable. But Mara Hale was never predictable. the files that shouldn't exist. By the time she reached the precinct, her clothes were soaked through. The night shift was thin, 2 officers at their desks, both staring into monitors, neither noticing the detective dripping onto the floor. She walked straight to evidence room B, the only place she might find the missing thread that connected the masked intruder, the coded symbols on the victims, and the old case from 20 years ago that no one wanted her reopening. Inside the evidence room, the temperature dropped a few degrees. The overhead lights hummed, flickering. Mara unlocked cabinet 17, the one she had broken a dozen rules to access already. But now, something was wrong. Half the boxes were gone. Mara froze. The case files for the Whitlock murders, the Night Crossing case, the Briar Lake vanishings. All missing. But the cabinet hadn't been pried open. No broken lock. No damage. Someone used the same key she'd used. Someone inside the department. Her pulse quickened. She reached for the remaining box, labeled simply E0, do not disseminate. The one she wasn't supposed to know existed. The one an anonymous source had tipped her off about. She opened it. Inside were only 2 items. A single photograph and a cassette tape. The photo was old, black and white, curled at the edges. It showed a group of 6 people standing in front of that same abandoned mill she'd just been in. 4 adults, 2 children. None were smiling. Their eyes seemed blurred, as if the camera refused to hold on to them. The longer she stared, the stranger it felt. The woman in the back row, tall, wearing a long coat, had the same bone structure as the masked intruder. Mara couldn't explain how, but the resemblance was impossible to miss. Beneath the photo, a note. They crossed once. They will cross again. Cycle 3. Prepare. A cold sensation slid down Mara's spine. Cycle 3? Prepare for what? She inserted the cassette tape into the old player mounted on the wall. It whirred to life, wheezing. A voice crackled through the speaker, low, rasping male. If you're hearing this, Detective Hale, then you've ignored every warning. The Night Crossing is not a case. It is a pattern. We thought we stopped it. We were wrong. They are choosing again. 1 child. 1 parent. 1 witness. 3 marks. 3 signs. 3 deaths. Static exploded for several seconds before the voice returned, sounding closer, as if whispering against the microphone. You cannot stop them. But you, Mara Hale, you are the variable they fear. Don't let them complete the 9th hour. And never go back to the mill at dawn. The tape clicked off. Mara stared at the player, heart pounding. Her name. They had recorded her name decades before she was even a detective, maybe before she was even born. She pressed rewind, hands trembling, but before the tape restarted. Detective Hale? She spun. Officer Jennings stood in the doorway, pale and wide-eyed. There's someone here to see you. Mara stiffened. Who? He swallowed. He didn't give a name. Jennings hesitated before adding. He said you'd want to speak with him because he knows where the next body will be found. The man with the lantern. The man was waiting in the interrogation room, his posture stiff, hands folded neatly on the metal table. He wore a dark coat soaked from the rain, and in front of him sat an old-fashioned lantern, not lit, but ticking faintly, like a heartbeat in slow motion. Mara entered cautiously. He didn't look up. Detective Hale, he said quietly. How do you know my name? Because I was told to give you this. He nudged the lantern toward her. Before the hour turns. Mara eyed it suspiciously. What's inside? A location. And a time. And a warning. She remained standing. Who sent you? Finally the man raised his head. His eyes, pale, gray, hollow, were filled with an exhaustion that looked older than any ordinary life. I used to be part of them, he whispered. The circle of the crossing. But I left. They don't permit anyone to leave. Mara's throat tightened. The circle? What is it? A cult. Not a cult. A covenant. A pact. His fingers trembled. They bind families. They bind histories. And they bind death to time. Mara exhaled sharply. Then tell me everything, now. The man shook his head. I can't. Not all of it. But enough for you to understand what happens tonight. Tonight? Yes. Before the 9th hour. His voice broke. They've chosen the child. Mara stepped closer. Whose child? He didn't answer verbally, only slid a folded piece of paper from his pocket. She opened it. It was a school photo. A girl. 7 years old. Hazel eyes. Freckles. A sweet, unsure smile. Under it, Maya Quinn. Mara's breath caught. Maya Quinn was the daughter of Allison Quinn, Mara's first partner on the force. And Allison had been murdered 2 years earlier in a case that was supposedly a burglary gone wrong. A case that never made sense, that Mara was never allowed to reopen. Maya, Mara whispered. They're going after her? The man nodded. They need the bloodline to continue the cycle. Mara slammed her hand on the table. Where is she? Where are they taking her? The man tapped the lantern. Open it. Mara hesitated. Something about the ticking inside felt wrong, like a countdown. But she forced the latch open. A piece of paper lay curled inside. She unrolled it. Coordinates. A time, 3:11 a.m. The message. The Bridge of Crows. Bring no one. Mara's heart hammered. That bridge is outside county lines, she muttered. Why there? The man whispered. Because the crossing always happens at water. The 9th hour will seal the next cycle. Stop saying 9th hour. What does it mean? He looked up with tears in his eyes. It means the moment when night chooses who won't survive the dawn. The lantern suddenly ticked louder. Mara jerked back. What the hell is that sound? The man stood abruptly. They know I told you. I have to leave. You're not going anywhere, Mara snapped. You're under protective custody. But the man only smiled, sad, defeated. There is no protection from them. Not for me. Before she could stop him, he smashed the lantern on the floor. Metal shattered. Sparks erupted. Smoke filled the room. Jennings rushed in, coughing, but by the time the air cleared, the man was gone. The only thing left was a black symbol smeared on the table, drawn in ash. The same symbol carved into the victim's skin. Toward the Bridge of Crows. Mara drove like a bullet fired toward midnight. The coordinates pulsed on her dashboard screen. The storm had only worsened, rain now slashing sideways, lightning cracking across the sky like celestial bones breaking. But as she neared the bridge, something strange happened. The rain stopped. Not gradually. Instantly. The road ahead was bone dry, as if the storm refused to cross into that territory. The Bridge of Crows came into view, a long, narrow stretch of wood and rusted steel arching over a black, slow-moving river. On the trees around it, dozens of crows perched silently, unmoving, watching. Waiting. Her headlights swept across the bridge, and her breath froze. A small figure stood at the center. Alone. Maya. Her yellow raincoat glowed like a candle in the darkness. Maya! Mara shouted as she jumped out of the car. Don't move. I'm coming. But before she could take a step, another voice answered from the shadows. You're late, Detective Hale. The masked intruder stepped into view from the far end of the bridge. But now, he wasn't alone. Two figures in long coats flanked him, faces hidden beneath wide-brimmed hats. The circle. Maya turned toward Mara, eyes wide with confusion and fear. Detective Hale? He said you were coming. Mara steadied her breath. It's okay, Maya. I'm going to get you out of here. No, the masked intruder said softly. She is the crossing. She was marked long before you understood the pattern. Let her go, Mara demanded. You don't realize yet, he said, stepping closer. This isn't about her. Or you. It's about stopping what your mother started. Mara froze. My mother? He tilted his head. You think you're an outsider to this pattern? Detective Hale, you are the final variable. The last descendant of the original circle. No, Mara whispered, but something inside her, some cold, buried instinct, knew he wasn't lying. He pointed toward the river. When the 9th hour strikes, the cycle continues. Unless you break it. How? Mara shouted. He raised his hand, and something glinted in it. A silver knife. Only one hail must cross the shadows, he said. One life binds the cycle. One life ends it. Mara's stomach dropped. You want me to sacrifice myself? No, he replied. He pointed the knife at Maya. We want you to choose. The world narrowed to a pinpoint. Maya sobbed, trembling. The river churned beneath them, black and alive. The crows began to caw, as if sensing the hour approaching. Mara stepped forward slowly. You don't need her. I'm the one you want. I'll take her place. That's not how the crossing works. Then I'll end the cycle myself, she hissed. The masked intruder laughed softly. Yes, that is what we fear. Lightning exploded overhead. The 9th hour began. Mara lunged, and the bridge erupted into chaos. The final choice. Mara tackled the masked intruder, both of them crashing onto the slick planks. The knife skittered across the bridge. Maya screamed. The two cloaked figures moved toward her. No! Mara sprinted, diving between them. She shoved Maya behind her. Run to the car. Go! But... Go! Maya bolted. The masked intruder rose slowly. If she leaves, the river will take your life instead. Are you willing, detective? Mara didn't answer. She didn't need to. She reached the knife first. His eyes widened behind the mask. You don't understand what happens if you break the... Yes, she snarled. I do. She slashed. The blade tore through the mask. He stumbled back, clutching his face, gasping. Blood spilled between his fingers. You don't know what you've unleashed, he wheezed. This was never meant for you alone. Mara stood over him, breathing hard. Then tell me, before I finish this. He trembled. You cannot stop what began before you were born. Lightning struck so close the bridge shuddered. Something rose from the river. A shape. A figure. A silhouette made of rippling black water, faceless and tall, its limbs stretching like tar dripping upward instead of down. The crows screamed. The air turned to ice. The masked intruder whispered, trembling. The 9th hour chooses now. Mara stepped back, knife raised. The river shadow extended a long, dripping arm toward her. Toward her. Not toward Maya. Not toward the cloaked figures. Toward Detective Mara Hale. Because she was the Hale descendant it wanted. She realized then, the intruder hadn't been threatening the child. He had been summoning the choice. Her life or the cycle's continuation. Mara tightened her grip on the knife. I choose, she whispered, and charged. The air tasted of iron. Detective Rowan Cabe stood at the edge of Harrow's Creek, staring at the shuttered remains of the farmhouse where everything had begun. The disappearances, the killings, the strange, impossible patterns carved into the victim's skin. A cold wind dragged dead branches across the frosted earth, whispering through the abandoned orchard behind the farmhouse in long, shivering breaths. He had avoided this place for months. But endings have gravity. They pull you back whether you want them or not. Behind him, a car door slammed. You sure about this? Detective Mara Hale stepped out, scarf whipping in the wind. Her breath fogged in the air as she joined him at the broken fence. No, Rowan said honestly. But the case won't let itself end. Mara followed his gaze to the orchard, hundreds of dead trees, twisted like ribs of some buried beast. Tonight's the anniversary, she murmured. That's why you brought me back. He nodded. 1 year ago to the night, Rowan had crawled out of that orchard with 3 broken ribs, a missing partner, and a story no sane detective would put in writing. The official report was clinical. Suspect deceased after struggle. Victims buried and burned by suspect. Fire consumed the orchard, cause undetermined. But the truth was uglier. Some truths don't die with the people who carried them. Rowan stepped over the fence. Let's finish this. Return to the orchard. The orchard ground was soft, too soft for winter. Every step felt like walking on soaked cloth. Mara wrinkled her nose. It shouldn't be like this. Ground should be frozen solid. I know, Rowan murmured. The deeper they walked, the darker it became, those dead, skeletal trees blocking the moonlight entirely. Mara clicked on her flashlight. At once the beam struck something unusual. A carving. Fresh. A spiral carved into the trunk of a dead tree. "Oh hell," Mara whispered. "Rowan, that's the symbol we saw on the bodies," he finished. They approached. More symbols began appearing, on branches, on trunks, on exposed roots. As if the orchard had grown new scars after death. Mara stopped suddenly. "Did you hear that?" Rowan did. A faint sound. Something between a sigh and a hum. Not wind. Not an animal. Something else. He followed the noise, pushing through brittle branches until he found a clearing, one the orchard didn't have last year. At the center was a hole. A deep pit, circular, lined with claw marks on the inside and outside. No snow had touched it. Like the earth refused to bury whatever had crawled out. Rowan felt the chill drop into his stomach. "It's open," he whispered. Mara aimed her flashlight into the pit. There was no bottom. "Rowan, what did you bury here last year?" He swallowed. "My partner. What the earth remembers." Rowan had never told Mara the full story. Not the real one. Not the truth you don't say out loud even to yourself. A year ago, he and Detective Elias Shore had followed a lead on the missing Harrow's Creek victims. They had tracked the suspect to this orchard, only to discover the suspect wasn't a killer in the usual sense. He had been offering them. To the earth. To something beneath it. A thing Elias never fully saw. A thing Rowan never wanted to see again. Elias had been dragged into the pit clawing at Rowan's jacket, screaming until the dirt swallowed him whole. Rowan still heard that scream in dreams. He had fired into the soil until the gun clicked empty. Then he had collapsed, shaking as the orchard caught fire from the muzzle flash and burned around him. He never found Elias' body. But he buried the memory here anyway. And now the earth had spit the grave back out. Rowan kneeled at the edge of the pit. The soil trembled faintly, as if breathing. "Mara," he murmured, voice trembling, "something's still alive down there." Before she could respond, the ground shook. A low groan rolled under their feet. "Back!" Mara shouted. The earth buckled. And then, something climbed out. What crawled from the grave? A hand, pale, skeletal, covered in dirt, gripped the edge of the pit. Mara staggered back, gun raised. Rowan froze. Another hand emerged. Then shoulders. Then a face. A face both familiar and wrong. Elias? It looked like Elias Shore. It wore Elias's jacket, stained and torn. Its hair hung in muddy clumps. Its eyes, once warm, sarcastic, human, were glassy black. "No," Rowan whispered. "No, you died. You can't." The creature crawled fully into the clearing, unfolding its limbs like a marionette remembering how to move. Its head jerked toward Rowan at an unnatural angle. Then it spoke. "Rowan." Voice ragged, like earth dragging over stone. Rowan's throat closed. Mara stepped between them. "That's not him. Stay back." Elias, the thing wearing Elias, tilted its head. "You left me." Rowan felt the words pierce him like needles. He stumbled backward as the creature stood. Soil poured off its clothes like water. Its fingers elongated, nails sharpening. "You let me fall. You let me drown." Rowan choked. I tried to hold you." The creature smiled. A slow, splitting smile stretching too wide. "You must come below. It's waiting." The ground under Rowan's feet throbbed. A heartbeat. Slow, monstrous, ancient. Rowan realized the truth. Elias wasn't alone down there. He had never been alone. Something had taken him, changed him, used him to reopen the gateway. Mara fired. One shot. The creature snapped but did not fall. The bullets sunk into soft, black flesh. The Elias thing lunged. The heart of the orchard. Rowan shoved Mara aside as the creature tackled him into the dirt. Cold fingers wrapped around his throat. Rowan gasped and clawed at them, teeth gritted. "Elias," he rasped, "I'm sorry." For a moment, the smallest moment, the creature hesitated. Its grip loosened by a hair. Rowan seized the moment. He drove his knife upward into its ribs. A sound split the orchard. Not a scream. A roar from the earth itself. The ground convulsed. Roots tore through the soil, writhing like snakes. They wrapped around Elias's legs, chest, arms, pulling him back toward the pit. "Rowan," the creature rasped, voice breaking like old wood, "help me." Rowan's heart broke. For one second he saw Elias, or what remained of him, a pleading human face beneath the corruption. Then Mara grabbed Rowan's arm, pulling him back. "It's not him." The orchard roots tightened, yanking the creature into the pit. Its nails dragged long, desperate lines in the dirt. Its face contorted, not human, not creature, but something in between. The earth swallowed it whole. Then the roots turned on Rowan. The final truth. The orchard shook violently. Branches snapped. The air thickened with dust and soil as the pit widened. "Run!" Mara screamed. Rowan couldn't move. The roots coiled around his ankle. Cold. Strong. Pulling. "Rowan!" Mara fired at the roots, splintering them. Rowan stumbled free and they ran, dodging collapsing trees, leaping over cracks as the orchard devoured itself. Behind them, the pit howled. A sound like 1,000 voices weeping, begging, starving. Rowan didn't dare look back. They reached the fence just as the orchard caved in entirely, a massive sinkhole swallowing the heart of Harrow's Creek. When Rowan finally turned around, all that remained was a crater, black, smoking, silent. Mara collapsed to her knees, panting. "Is it over?" she whispered. Rowan stared into the abyss. "No," he said softly. "It's sleeping." Epilogue. 1 year later. Harrow's Creek was gone. The state bought the land and sealed it off. Investigators found no traces of bodies. No tunnels. No orchard roots. Only unnatural soil patterns and the faint smell of rot. Rowan transferred out of state. Mara stayed, unwilling to leave unanswered questions behind. But neither of them returned to the crater. Until the anniversary. Rowan stood on the ridge once more, looking down at the now solid ground. Winter's snow covered the crater, smooth and untouched. Peaceful. For the first time in years, Rowan felt a hint of calm. Mara will join me soon, he thought. We'll talk. Maybe laugh. Maybe finally bury the guilt that's been killing me. A soft wind blew over the crater, whispering across the snow. Rowan closed his eyes. A cracking sound. He opened them. A single sprout pushed through the snow. Green. Vibrant. Alive. Rowan's breath hitched. The sprout shook once, as if stretching, as if waking. Then it whispered, "Rowan." Rowan stumbled backward, heart hammering. The whisper came again, soft, drifting, almost tender. "Come home." The ground shivered. Just once. A promise. Or a threat. Rowan didn't wait. He ran. Behind him, the sprout grew another inch. Then another. Then another. The orchard had begun again.